20. The man had they came and knocked on Nicodemus' office door. It opens and Justin and Mr. Aegis entered. Back so soon, said Nicodemus. Soon, said Justin. It's past noon. It's lunchtime. Past noon, Mr. Frisbee stood up, remembering her children waiting at home, down in the rat home in the artificial light. It was hard to tell the passage of time, and she had been so engrossed in Nicodemus' story that she had not glanced at the clock. Just was wearing a satchel like Nicodemus, and from it he took a small paper package. Here's Dragon's medicine, he said, putting it on the table. He asked Mrs. Frisbee, did he tell you about the toy tinker? Nicodemus said, no, I was just coming to that, but I can't stay to hear it now, said Mrs. Frisbee. My children will be waiting for their lunch. A plane was working out. Mrs. Frisbee would go home to take care of her children. Nicodemus, just Arthur, and the other rats involved would work out the details of moving her house, which would be done that night at about 11 o'clock after the Fitzgibbons are asleep and where Sir Dragon is too, said Nicodemus. Mrs. Frisbee would return in mid-afternoon to the rosebush. Mr. Aegis said, and I'm coming to lie down after making that trip with this cast. I'm tired. You can have your choice of rooms, said Nicodemus. Now that Jenner and his friends are gone, we have 7 empty. Thank you, said Mr. Aegis. Mrs. Frisbee, when you return, I will tell you as well as I can actually how to put the power in Dragon's food. As she hurried home, Mrs. Frisbee considered just how much she should tell her children about all that had happened and all that was going to happen. She decided at the stage at least she would not tell them about their father's connection with the rats, also that she would not say she had volunteered to put the sleeping powder into Dragon's bowl. That would worry them. She could tell them perhaps when it was safely done, when, among other things, there would be no chance for Martin to volunteer in her place. She would tell them simply that, as the old owl had suggested, she had gone to the rats and asked for help. She had found them friendly and intelligent, and a group of them were coming that night to move the house to a place where it would be safe from the plow. That would be enough. She could tell them the whole story later when she knew it all herself. But it was not enough. The children were skeptical at first, then intensely curious, especially Timothy, who was looking stronger and feeling more energetic, but still staying in bed primarily because Clarissa and Martin had made him. But why should the rats do that? Said Timothy. We don't know them at all. Nobody does. They keep to themselves. Maybe it's because the owl sent me, said Mrs. Frisbee, searching for an answer that would satisfy him. They seemed to be impressed by the whole owl. For the matter, said Timothy, I don't even see why the owl wanted to help. He's no friend of ours either. Maybe they thought someday we could do them a favor in return. Oh, Mother, said Cynthia, how could we ever do them a favor? You forgot I did do Jeremy a favor. That's what starts the whole thing. That and my getting sick, said Timothy. I could get up. I'm tired of bed. Not yet, said Mrs. Frizzy, glad to change the subject. You must save your strength because tonight you will have to get up for a little while when they move the house. We must be sure you will wrap up a hole that the night is warm. It will be so, said Martin. It's turned quite hot outside. They ate lunch. That afternoon, Mrs. Frisbee told the children that she must leave them to confer again with the rats about moving the house when she thought of the danger she would face in just a few more hours. She wanted to kiss them all goodbye, but no one knowing that Timothy at least was already suspicious, she did not dare, but told them only that they should not worry if she was a little late getting home for supper. On her way back to the rosebush, she felt quiet, relieved, almost cheerful. Her problem was nearly solved, and the final solution was in sight. If all went well, Timothy would be saved. If all went well, then the thought of what she had to do came back to her like the clanging of a alarm bell. What worried her most was not so much putting the powder in Dragon's bowl, but the fear that at the last minute she might lose her nerve and bungle it somehow that could work the plan. She looked toward the Fitzbones farmhouse, and there on the back porch, laying in the sun, was Dragon. He was watching a pair of sparrows playing in the grass halfway to the kitchen yard. The tip of his tail bud twisted as he depended whether or not they were near enough to spring for. He looked very big and very dangerous. At least he was not looking in her direction, and Mrs. Frisbee hurried onto the bush directly to the hiding entrance and slipped inside. When she reached the arching portal, Brutus was standing guard as before, but this time he bent her politely. I've been expecting you, he said. May I go in? If you'll wait just a minute, I'll get Justin. He went inside. the arch and pressed a small button on the wall. Mrs. Frisbee had not noticed it before. A doorbell, she said. It rings a buzzer down below. If I pushed it there 3 times, you'd see some action. Action, that's the alarm signal. A dozen rats would come out the door ready to fight. All the rest, with the women and children, would be hurrying out the back door. I didn't know there was a back door. It comes out in the woods in a blackberry bramble. It's got a longer tunnel than this one. When Justin appeared, they went down the same hallway as before, but this time when they reached the chamber where the elevator and the stairway led down, Justin paused. Nicodemus thought, "You might like to see our main hall, just a quiet look," he said. You asked about the plane. I did, said Mrs. Frisbee, but he didn't tell me about it. It's more than just a plan now, but we're used to calling it that. If you see the main hall, you'll get an idea of what we're doing. So interested of going down as they had before, just led the way across the chamber, whereas Mrs. Frisbee and had noticed the tunnel continued. They walked along for what seemed like several more minutes, somewhere right along her. Justin remarked a remarked, "We're entering the woods. You will notice the tunnel runs a bit crooked. We had to bend it to go around taproots, some as thick as fence posted." They went on until they came to a fork in the tunnel. Right fork leads out to the blackberry bramble, said Justin. Left fork leads to the main hall. They took the left fork. Now brace yourself for a surprise. From ahead came noses. The sound of many rats talking, a sound of hurrying and thumping, and of machinery running. They stepped into a room as full of activities as a factory. It was the biggest room Mrs. Frisbee had ever seen, half the size of a house, with a ceiling and floor of hard gray rock. It was brightly lit with electric bulbs. Here, the large sides were strung unshaded, and beneath them were rats at work everywhere. Rats running electric motors that ran belts that ran small circular saws, lathes, drills, gradations, and other tools. Mrs. Frisbee could not name rats, hemming, welding, cutting, but most of all rat healing. There was a steady process to and from the far end of the chamber, and each of these rats were a harness to which was fastened and a pair of large sturdy sacks on on each side like a mini pack horse. As the rats trooped in, their sacks were empty. They disappeared into a part of the room that was hidden by a high wall of wood. When they came back, the sacks were full of heavy. As she watched a troop of teens, their sacks bilging went past her out the tunnel. They went to Justin and nodded at her, but they did not pause. She noticed that Justin inside the entrance and electricity fan worried quietly, aiming inward, pulling fresh air into the room from somewhere out in the woods. Mrs. Frisbee stood beside Justin and gasped. She felt dizzy at the sight, the motion, the noise, and the size of the room, which must have measured 20 feet long and almost as wide. How could you ever dig out such a big room? She asked. We didn't, said Justin. We found it's a natural cave. You can see that the ceiling and floor are solid rock. That's the reason, or the main one, we choose this spot to live. Others had lived there before us, probably for centuries. Before there was a farmhouse, bears, then wolves, then fox, then groundhogs. When he quit a cleaning job to do, I can tell you. When we found it, there was a large hole only a few feet long, leading straight it by. It was so full of sticks and leaves you could hardly see it. We closed the entrance and dug another longer and narrower or back our back door. Then we dug out our living quarters under the rose bush and the entrance you came in, but the cave is still our chief workshop. Let's go in. As they entered, some of the rats looked up, some waved and smiled, but all quickly turned back to the work they were doing as if they were in a hurry. They're all a shudder. Justin explained, talking close to Mrs. Frisbee's ear to be heard above the noise, so they can't stop working. One group, especially busy, was gathered around an old-shaped object of wood and metal about a foot long. It was curved and had a point at one end. It looked, Mrs. Frisbee thought, rather like the side of a small boat. Could the rats be making a boat? Then she saw that they were fastening a strong metal ring to the top of it. Justin led her to it. That, he said, is our most important invention. The key to the whole plan. We made a pilot model. Last fall we tried it out and it worked, so now we're making 3 more. But what is it? It's a plow, Nicodemus decided. It himself. After reading every book he could find about farm tools. It's light and sharp, especially made to be pulled by rats. It takes 8 of us to pull it, more if the turf is thought. But with it we can turn over in a day of hard work a patch of earth about 10 by 15 feet. But why? What do you need it for? Come over here and I'll show you. He led the way to the back of the cave where the high wall stood. He opened a door and bumped her through. She stood in a large wooden bin starting at her feet, and rising in a slope to the wall of the cave was a small mountain of green oats, said Justin. He led her on, opened another door on other mountain. Wet, he said, and others buried corn, soybeans. We've been building these stock fields for a long time, she said, all from Mrs. Fishbone's barn. We know now have a 2-year supply for 108 rats, plus enough to plant for 2 crops in case the first one fails. In there, he gestured toward the least bin in the row. We have boxes full of seeds for tomato, beans, carrots, melons, and a lot more. All the time they stood there, the steady procession of rats continued. They entered the bins, took off their hen's stacks, filled the sack with grain, put them on again, and left through the tunnel out the back door. They looked Mrs. Frisbee through like very large ants, and slowly tolling on a ant hill. Justin must have got the same impression, for he said, if the ants can do it, Nicodemus says it. If the bees can do it, so can we. Do what? Why, live without stealing. Of course, that's the whole idea, that's the plan.